Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation. It truly means a lot to me. Starting off, I would love everybody to watch this scene from a movie, and then after, I will take like a couple answers of how did it make you feel.
My apologies.
All right, so how did it make you guys feel? Take a couple hands around the room. Yes.
It made me cry when I saw this in the theater because my daughter was about to go to college.
Yes.
So the mama sobs.
Aw.
That movie came out when I went to college. It came out the summer that I went to college. My mom and I were watching it in our living room. We hadn't seen it before. She was behind me on the couch just weeping.
Well,
Cool. Thanks for
Well, since the beginning of cinema, films have served as a way for people to escape from their realities and like able to sit in a dark room for a few hours and enjoy a leisurely movie. But what a lot of people don't realize is the effect that they have on our behaviors. So for my topic today, I'll be talking about how films help us study human behavior. So today I'll be going through how the brain processes information, how film directors connect with audiences, the effects that they have, both positive and negative, the Christian mindset, and then my conclusion. Starting off with how the brain processes information. The human brain processes information through our several senses, which are vision, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. But we also have several other senses that are like hyperfixated, which are specialized sensations, pain, pressure, and temperature control. With these senses, they send transmitted information to the brain as electronical signals. These brain signals are categorized into incoming signals to inherit a response. And then when the cerebrum intertwines with the voluntary movements, while the cerebrum correlates with the smooth movements, both perform both sensory input and output functions. The central nervous system generates both voluntary and involuntary responses, which allows the brain to relax and feel pleasure and almost get into like a flattering set, and then it leading into a more neutral conversation in order for the movie to come in and relax, not knowing that you're processing this information regularly, like how you do with other things that happen in your life. How directors connect with audiences. Audience identification is a very key tool that film directors use when they're trying to convey something to an audience. In order to have a successful film, you need to have audience identification. These techniques help an audience to connect with characters and events in a film. Films can influence a person's real-life attitudes, behaviors, or opinions depending on what the movie is talking about. Some examples are Top Gun Maverick and JFK. When the movie Top Gun Maverick came out in 2022, several people after had a very big reaction to it. They wanted to be in the Air Force, and it actually went up 75%, the applications, especially for the Top Gun unit. And then for JFK, right after the film came out in 1991, several people changed their political parties to the Democratic Party because they didn't realize how much the portrayal of JFK was portrayed in that film. Actually rose up to 46% that year. So there are 3 methods for audience identification that film directors use. The first one we have is physical suturing, which is the involving of cameras and sound techniques to immerse an audience in a scene. This is used typically a lot in action films, so that way people can feel like they're running with the character or they're in the war scene, and it just helps them be in it. The next one we have is moral suturing, which is representing the values that an audience can understand and connect with. Once again, typically used a lot in superhero films, and a lot for films with a main protagonist when people want to support them, root for them, and make sure that they're gonna win whatever trial that they're facing in their lives. The final one we have is emotional suturing, which aims to generate sympathy and relatability through characters and events. A very big and prominent film that came out this year called Saltburn is a very interesting film because a lot of people don't realize that there's a specific scene in the film when a character has recently passed away. And this scene in the film depicts all the other characters sympathizing with grief. And they each represent a different form of grief. And this is a very big and key tool because not everyone grieves the same way. We all grieve in separate, different ways. And this scene served as a very big, prominent example. We had an alcoholic, we had someone crying, we had someone ignoring it. It served as a very big key tool to relatability. So now we have the effects that it has on humans. First one we have is inspirational role models in actions. Characters in movies often react to role models, inspiring young people to imitate their positive behavior and actions, shaping their moral compass and sense of right and wrong. It also serves as an influential source to help younger audiences differentiate the ideas of good and evil decisions that you can make in the world, and allows them to differentiate their decisions. Next, we have education on certain topics. Usually, a lot of people don't really think about it a lot, but science fiction films, for example, Oppenheimer, a lot of people really didn't know what the Manhattan Project was. But a film like this was able to simplify ideas and make it easier for younger people or people that had no idea about the topic seem easier and make it understandable to audiences. And then another big one is on historic films. For example, a film called Schindler's List, which is a film depicting Oskar Schindler during the Holocaust, promotes a positive outlook on how people should be treated regardless of race, religion, or heritage from the actions of the protagonist, which created a positive message. Next, we have promotes introspective and self-evaluation. Inspirational films typically serve as a relatability tool for people facing personal struggles, encouraging them to overcome their challenges and pursue their goals, demonstrating that obstacles can be overcome with determination. And finally, we have promotes emotional resurgence and comfort. Typically, a lot of meaningful films, like A Dog's Purpose or something like that, uses as a way for people to also relate, but convey some type of emotion towards them. And this acts as a machine for people that are going through difficult times, offering them comfort, a sense of connection to individuals, showcasing their stories with resilience and empowerment. Next, we have the negative effects that films can have on people. First, we have purposeful corruption. Propaganda is a very big thing that's used in several communist countries, for example, North Korea and Russia. They purposely put films in their cinemas so that way their citizens can imitate what's happening on screen. And so that way their citizens can act as if they're representing of their role models that are on screen. Next, we have hurting a person's mental state. Certain scenes in films that could be depicting suicide or graphic violence can lead to harsh and negative effects on people, especially when the viewer is in like a very emotional and like a bad mental state where they don't have the capability to separate themselves from the characters in the film. It can lead to like very bad effects to them. And a very big prominent film that had a lot of backlash for a scene like this was a movie called Dead Poets Society. There is a very big scene in that film when one of the characters commits suicide. And several people said that that should have not been included in the film, but at the end of the day, it showed a very raw representation of things that could happen in their lives. Next, we have exposure to inappropriate actions. Themes such as violence, drug abuse, and unrealistic concepts can give younger audiences the wrong idea of things to do in their lives. And it can typically really hurt them when it comes to their mental state. And then another one that correlates with age-appropriate actions is differentiating fiction versus reality. Fiction, films that are typically depicting themes such as magic, superpowers, can contribute to children struggling to differentiate fiction and reality, potentially impacting their perspectives on life. For example, Harry Potter, it's very typical for children to watch that when they're young, typically 11 years old. But it can definitely affect them when the parents are not aware of their situations and struggles that are happening with them, struggling for them to have potential distortion when it comes to them figuring out if magic is a real thing or it's not a real thing that happens in real life. Then we have the Christian mindset. Poetry and artist section books in the Bible symbolize the human experience and empathize the importance of spiritual and emotional relationships, allowing readers to connect with the story deeper on an emotional level. Both the Bible and movies provide an insight into the impact of life experiences and human behavior, offering narratives that can showcase the positive and negative effects of various circumstances on individuals. For example, the Bible was one of the first stories that was ever told. And there's lessons in the Bible that, depending on how you read it or how you interpret it, could be a positive or negative effect, just like how we have with movies. So one thing I would like to leave you off is films have such a power over us in society and the way how our mindset can change in just a second from us watching a film. Films allow people to study and understand human behavior more effectively using the techniques of audience identification, moral, physical, and emotional suturing, and character relatability. Audiences can be affected in some way that can change them for the rest of their lives. But no matter if a film is changing you for the better or the worse, it really comes down to how you decide how the film changes you. And that is it. And any questions?
So, yes, I want to open it up to you first. If you've got any questions or feedback or anything tonight, and by guests, I mean not student guests, as much as you are valued and welcome. But all the other folks that took time out of their day to come by. Do y'all have any questions or comments, Coach?
Do you think as people, we sometimes underestimate the intentionality of directors and writers and producers as they try to convey certain things? Maybe, I know there's times that I read poetry and I go, that's too deep, you're reading into this. Yeah. Like, elaborate on that, maybe the intentionality of directors and producers.
So that kind of goes in with the positive and negative effects of when it comes to how you can be changed depending on a film. Typically, a lot of negative things that happen, no matter if you're reading into it or you're just like seeing it from like the surface level, most of the time the directors aren't trying to do it for a negative approach. Like, it's a very common thing that they put in so that way people can learn from it and experience it. And really, like, directors love putting in things on the deeper perspective for people that love to look at that stuff. I love doing that, watching films. And yeah, I really think that a lot of it is very intentional, depending on even surface level or like very deeply rooted ideas that are put into a film.
What responsibility do you think that today's filmmakers have to their audiences to go beyond just art for art's sake?
I think I want to be a film minor, so this is very important to me. I think that when it comes to making films, they should be something educational. Like, you should walk away from a film learning something, like either motivating you or learning about, no, I don't want to have this in my life, or wow, this was so empowering, I would love like to do this. And it should walk away with a lesson. And depending if it affects you in a negative way or positive way, I think most directors would love and hope for, when they put out a film, for it to be in a positive and helpful way, in a lesson.
Currently, the only, kind of piggybacking off of that, like, the only accountability to filmmakers and producers is whoever's footing the bill.
Mhm.
Should that change? How much freedom should filmmakers and producers have?
I think there is a reason why there is the separation between a director and a producer. I really do think that directors should now have more ability to put in what they want into a film, because they were hired to put what they want on screen because of their vision. And I think if you're a producer and director, that's a completely different situation, because you are able to have an idea that you were brought forth with and created, and you get to put it on screen. But I think if you're a producer that's brought in for an idea and you're investing your money into it, I think that's a completely different thing. If you don't relate to it, you shouldn't be a part of the project.
So, but given potential for a negative impact, you think you would say there should be less accountability to filmmakers for the content and messages that they put out?
No, I think if you are being hired for a film as a director and you don't agree with the negative impacts, knowing very wholeheartedly that there could be positive negative impacts, I don't think that you are in it for the right reasons. You're just doing it for the money. Yeah.
So it's clear that you're very passionate about this, and so I'm curious, what films personally for you have had a huge impact on you?
Well, my mom's here if nobody knows. So
Oh, so now you can answer the question.
no. What I was gonna say, going.
She wasn't allowed to
No.
watch that film,
No. That one of the movies that had a very big impact on me was growing up. My mom remembers when the movie Princess Diaries came out. It had such a big impact on me because it was like an ordinary girl became like a princess, and like she was like her own individual self and created like power. And then another one that Mr. Barrett actually showed me was called Schindler's List. I'm a big historical person, and I have never ever seen a film that depicted such a raw distinction of the Holocaust. And that movie really showed that like there were very like helpful people during that time. There were people that were willing to sacrifice what they had and be killed because they wanted to help the Jews and people that were being sent to concentration camps. And yeah, and like there's other films like E.T. is like that, like also has a small part in me that I think is amazing. And yeah, there's just a lot of films I like. Yeah.
Cool mama. So you mentioned the suicide scene in Dead Poets, and a lot of people didn't think that should be in there. Dead Poets is one of my favorite movies of all time. It inspired me to want to be an English teacher.
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever stood on the desk like him, but I wanted to. So what's your opinion? Do you agree that the suicide scene should have been left out, or do you think it was okay to leave that in?
I believe that a scene like that should be left in a film because, like how I said earlier, it's a very raw distinction of things that people are going through in their real lives. And I think it added a sense of rawness to the film that just created like you never know what could be happening with somebody. Like you don't know if they're going through these thoughts or other things like drug abuse, and you just really don't know. So I think it was very crucial. I do think though that's why ratings are created for films. I think it is an age appropriate thing. Like I 100% believe that it is something that should be known and taught to people. Like this is a very serious issue that could happen in life. Yes.
I have a comment. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
first of all, really, really good job. Really well done. And I can tell you thought a lot. You had one of my favorite things about it was you made this distinction about the different types of, use the word suturing, the different types of intentions that directors, that filmmakers are going to have.
Yes.
And you distinguish between the moral and the emotional. And I'm interested in that because I like the big lesson here that yes, directors, producers, filmmakers, they're going to be responsible for lessons, as you said, that you take away from it. So I have mixed feelings about a lot of movies I've seen recently where they'll take a villain and they'll give it a backstory, and you walk away like growing up, Joker was just the worst person ever, just complete anarchy, chaos, just the worst, right? And then you get a backstory and you walk away from the movie thinking, oh, I get it now. And I wonder, so here's the question. Here's what I'd love to hear your thoughts on. I wonder how careful directors need to be in terms of the emotional, the way they can move, the way that
like the
movie can move
pathos,
people emotionally, but then also start to make us falter a little bit on our moral and our moral leanings and our moral standards and whatnot. What do you have to say about that?
I think it is very important when you're watching films like The Joker or like just films that depict like Maleficent, like depict like this person went through all of these troubles and they became such a horrible human just so that way in the film that was before that you clearly understand, oh, they're doing this because of X, Y, and Z. I think that really comes down to the pathos and emotion that they're putting towards the movie. And I really think with these types of films, they're mostly for enjoyment when adding a backstory, because you can go online and people are constantly asking, like, before the Joker had a backstory, people were like, oh, like, I wonder, like, how he came from, like, this and this and this, and then we got that movie with Joaquin Phoenix. And it's just, like, with that, when it comes to morals, I really think that it depends on the angle that the film is coming from and the way how the director is moving it for it to be a sense of, like, for you to ask, like, is this okay? But I think that really stands alone as individual films versus a series or, like, a storyline that's being progressed through films. I think that is a specific, like I can't compare the Joker from the Suicide Squad to the Joker of Joaquin Phoenix. Like, it's two very different stories, and they should stand alone as films individually instead of a storyline.
I have one more real quick, if you don't mind me. So, great answer. The next question I'm thinking is, you mentioned several positions that are involved here: directors, producers, and of course there's a whole team that people will bring along with them, and so on. And it seems like a lot of the movies that are being made, it's a big part of. At some point, someone has decided this is a story that needs to be told. Unless you got one of those rare exceptions where you got like the director, producer, writer, like this one person's done everything. It seems like directors and producers of movies are really powerful in culture because they're the ones deciding this is a story that needs to be told. So can you talk to us a little bit about how important that is, that not just, like what stories are told, but how those particular stories are told, how that impacts culture and just broadly the audience that's viewing these movies.
Like examples of movies?
Examples or just in general, like how important is that to our culture?
Well, I know I've talked about it already, but Schindler's List. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a very powerful, powerful movie. Like, the whole movie is filmed in black and white to show you that that's how people were looking at the 1940s in the Holocaust. Like, several people walked out of that movie, like, saying, I had no idea that was the way that the Holocaust was depicted. It was a very, very powerful movie. It's a personal favorite of mine. And especially the scene with the little girl in the red jacket. They're having a raid in the ghettos, trying to get all the Jewish people into the concentration camps on a bus. There's several killings that happen in that specific scene of people getting shot in a line, et cetera, et cetera. And there's this little girl in a red jacket walking through the ghetto, and nobody realizes it. But it showed how much, like, the idea behind that scene was that people were being, like, other countries were being blinded by a very red, serious topic. And that goes with color theory. Like, the idea that red is a very prominent, strong color, and yet nobody realized that this little girl was walking by. Just like how that was an intentional part showing that no countries knew that the Holocaust was going on until they were in it. And that film really stood the test of time. There was a foundation that was created for it and really showed, like this is something that we need to be aware of. And then there's so many other movies, like, that can, like, have affected me. Like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm pretty sure everyone has a general idea. Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie. That showed the Charles Manson murders. A lot of people had no idea that that was something that was going on in Hollywood, especially killing people. Like Sharon Tate had a child at the time, and no one had an idea that people in Hollywood were getting murdered. And I think it's very important for film directors, like, if you have an idea that you feel like can teach a lesson or educate people on a certain topic, I think it should be put into light. And if, like, you write it and you produce it and you direct it yourself, like, that's amazing. And I love watching films like that from people that started from scratch zero and created a thing, like a movie called Lady Bird. I love that movie. And there's just, like, there's such a big thing that you could take from movies. Like I watch movies now, and there's so many lessons that you can learn from a movie. So I think it's very important, like, when you watch a movie, watch it intentionally and understand, like, what is the message behind this movie? Which I think is something important that I would love everyone to take away from this.
Classmates, y'all got anything for Naya? Anything you want to ask?
What would you say is, like, the top movie that's, like, what is your favorite movie of all time? Like,
Me?
or was it the one that your mom mentioned to you earlier?
No, I actually don't know. There's a lot of movies. I actually really like Pulp Fiction. That is, I don't think it's a Southside appropriate film, but I really like that movie. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, you can cut that out of the video.
What is it called?
Post cuts, like
Yeah. We'll take care of that.
like deleted scenes.